Last week, Boeing stock went up huge. And when those sort of things happen, we need to ask ourselves, is it too late to buy? Should we buy? And also, is it too late to buy? Wait, I already said that. But seriously, have we missed the boat or plane or whatever? That's what I want to look at today. And I've done a lot of research for you guys so that you don't have to. So let's get into that right now. Let's go. Just before you all run away and buy Boeing stock based on my word, because I know that I have that much pull and that much authority. I don't, please don't. I'm just giving you general advice, my opinion, my own research. Speak to the people you need to speak to, professional help, all that stuff, yada, yada. And believe me, I wish everyone watching right now got in on that incredible growth. But hey, life does that to us. It's all about looking into the future. And on this channel, we're long-term investors. So let's have a look and see what the potential of Boeing is, because I still think they've got a pretty good situation going. And I do think there's huge potential for their future and some massive upside. And just remember, as I'm filming this video right now for you, the price of their stock has actually dropped about 50%. If something drops 50%, going back exactly to where it was is not going up 50%. It goes up 100%. So if you believe it's going to get back to where it was, you could be up for doubling your money. And even if it gets most of the way, maybe up to the 300s, might go up 35%, 50%. Last week, they went up about 30% just in that 1 week. And when that sort of thing happens, two different things going on in our minds. The first is that we are too late. Did we completely miss out on the incredible jump? And the second is that we get FOMO, the fear of missing out on what that stock price can provide for us. And both of those inner conundrums can lead to us making mistakes, buying stocks for the wrong reason. We want to make calculated, well-educated decisions, which is why I dived so deep. Dove? Which brings us to the first thing I want to talk about, which is that they've started ramping up production again. In Jan 2020, just a few months ago, they decided to stop producing the planes, the 737 MAX, and only just at the end of May, they decided to start producing them again, albeit at a slower and lower rate, but they're still producing planes. And considering Boeing make planes, that can only be good news. And with all of that going on, producing planes again, it looks like flights have also started just slightly to incrementally increase from where they were just a little while ago. This left column shows you the amount of flights on particular day, and then the right column shows you the same day last year. And you can see it's still way down. But there's a few better days in there, just slightly starting to increase. And that's where we hit our first roadblock. Is that a pun? No. Air block? Tarmac block? I don't know. Anyway, the first piece of bad news is that Boeing have just announced 7,000 layoffs with their staff, and that is only the first wave. They're trying to cut 15% of their payroll, particularly in the commercial sector. Particularly. Whatever. And while that's horrible news for the staff, because no one wants to be laid off, especially when unemployment rates are so high and it's so hard to get a job. No one wants that. But in Boeing's case, it might be good news. They've started their production up really slowly and they're slowly building it, which means that they do have to cut costs. And unfortunately, payroll is a very simple way to do that. As heartless as that sounds, it's just one of the harsh realities of doing business. All right, back to some more good news. Rumor has it, if you hit thumbs up on this video, it can help my channel grow and soar off into the skies just like a Boeing plane. So if you're enjoying the video, it takes a lot of time to make these. I put a lot of research, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. So if you're enjoying it, hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get back to it. All right, so the real good news, sort of good news, is instead of canceling their orders, a lot of their customers have started deferring the orders, which is good news because the orders aren't being cancelled, and it's bad news because they're not taking ownership of the product and the revenue can't be realized straight away. So it kind of goes both ways, but the way I see it, it's more good news than it is bad because they're still maintaining their orders, just at a future agreed date. It's kind of like dating. You're both hoping to get somewhere with the date, dinner's bought and paid for, and it's all about what's going to happen in the future. Where's it going to take you? You're still on the date, just like those planes are still on order, but they just haven't hit the customer yet. So while that's good news for Boeing because they're going to see a handsome payday in the future, it also can be a bit of bad news because they might run into storage issues with thousands and thousands of aircraft. And I don't know if you've seen planes before, but you can't just fold them up and put them away. Okay, turns out that's not totally true. You can fold them up and put them away. But you get the idea. Planes are pretty hard to move. They've got to store them somewhere, and that's going to be really, really difficult. Now, here's something very interesting about Boeing, and it really is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle, and it's part of why I think they're such a good, long-standing, long-term investment. One of their biggest customers is the US government. They are both in each other's back pocket, and they're both just as important to each other. And that is a really good position to be. It's almost like the government is their insurance. That's a really safe spot to be. Boeing doesn't only make aircrafts, and it's actually only one of their 3 main income streams, and it's why they're such a well-diversified company, which does separate them from the rest of the airline and the travel industry. They have commercial airplanes, defense, space and security, and global services. And the craziest part is the US government accounts for more than 20% of Boeing's total revenues. That just shows you how important Boeing is to the US government, and also how important the US government is to Boeing. And if you've watched my channel before, you know I am a sucker for a moat. That sounds very inappropriate. A moat is just a competitive advantage, and Boeing has that in spades. Alongside Airbus, they are the two. They have what you would call a duopoly, where they both are the kingpin of that industry, and they are just leagues above everyone else. And the reason for that is pretty simple. It is very, very difficult and requires an enormous amount of capital to make planes. So it's really hard to get into the space, which they call very high barriers to entry. So if they can fix up their issues with their 737 MAX, that could be the biggest bug off their back. Is that an expression? That totally sounded like an expression until it came out of my mouth. Now I have absolutely no idea. Let me know in the comments, please. But I believe they're getting it sorted. I don't imagine it's going to be a hugely long-standing problem. And if they do get on top of it, then they maintain that incredible competitive advantage alongside Airbus. Now, here is something super important to understand and can very easily and understandably be missed, especially by new investors that don't know what they're looking for. And that is on their balance sheet. So let's go over and have a look at their balance sheet right now. If we take a look, we can see that their current liabilities are really, really high. But if we look down here, we can see that $50 million worth of those current liabilities are actually deferred revenue, which is what I touched on earlier. That is the orders that have been placed, but for a future date. So at the moment, they can't consider it an asset or active revenue. They have to consider it to be a current liability. And in the future, when those orders become realized, that's when this will become revenue and when it will go to the other side of the ledger. So it can be really, really deceptive. And if you look a little bit closer, you can see that that $50 million worth of deferred revenue actually makes up more than half of their current liabilities. And that's why I see it kind of as a positive, because I don't think it will stay that way. And that will become revenue into the future, which will put them back on track where they need to be. So as long as customers keep deferring their orders and not canceling, we're all good in the hood. Oof. I am straight. Guys, I realize that that might have been really confusing, especially if you're a new investor or not used to looking at the balance sheet at all. But just know that it is a current liability at the moment. But when they sell the plane and they actually give up possession of the plane to their customers, that's when it will turn into revenue. Another big move that Boeing have made in these turbulent times, I brought it back. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that to you. That was not fair. But another thing that they did in these trying times is they actually appointed a new CEO. And it's somebody who's been in the aviation industry for 20 years and has actually been on the board of Boeing for the last 10 years as well. So that's a wealth of experience. And his name is David Calhoun, which, by the way, goes down as one of the great names, especially if you say it like that. Calhoun. Now, Calhoun, we'll say it normally, has promised to do a lot for the company, and a lot of it's geared towards getting it back on track to where it should have been. And one of the key elements is transparency with customers, with regulators, and it's really, really important as investors and stockholders. We want to know what to expect from our company. We want them to be upfront and honest. And it's an area where Boeing have been criticized in the past for not really excelling. So hopefully Calhoun can bring us the goods and deliver a more transparent message from Boeing. And being that he's been with Boeing for 10 years on their board, he's seen everything there is to see regarding the 737 MAX. So hopefully he can take some real initiative and start to resolve some of those issues. And if that becomes a really big problem, it definitely hurts their chances as a good long-term investment. But like I've said, I do believe that they will get it sorted and it will be a very good long-term investment. Ultimately, there is so much to like about Boeing and I really like their long-term prospects. I'm not 100% sold on their short-term prospects. It's possible that we're not going to see another enormous surge in coming weeks and months. We may have missed that initial boat or plane, I guess, but it does look like it should have a good future. Guys, please drop a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. It really helps my channel. I appreciate it so much. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, I'm Dan, and you've been Dansplained. See ya!